Okay. Okay.
Good.
All right, Chair, so.
Okay. Mr. Tate, would you please come up to the microphone? Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
I am Doug Tate. I'm an attorney. I practice here in Buncombe County. My office is actually in Greenville, South Carolina, but I consider myself a Asheville attorney. I just commute up here to Buncombe County. I represent Jack Ryan LLC, and Jack Ryan LLC is the owner of a parcel of property located at 64 Washington Avenue. It is actually the second property from the very entrance into the school bus facility.
So if you were coming in the up the roadway to the entrance, would they be on the left or the right?
They would be on the left.
Left. Okay, so that's that second square on the picture.
Yeah. That's correct.
Okay. The rectangle, I should say.
And so with regard to this rezoning, we understand that with R10 they could not do what they want to do. It would have to be zoned correctly. We did look at the zoning. We saw the same issue, that it could be CS or it could be light industrial. We see that certainly the way that the staff has indicated that the conditional zoning will give the city or the town of Woodfin more power to control the property into the future, which is one of the things that, as part of this residential neighborhood, Jack Ryan LLC is very, very concerned about, and that is this idea that it could be sold, and then it becomes something that you all and the town of Woodfin didn't contemplate. The application did not indicate, but the staff report indicates that there's going to be 6,000 square feet of office addition to this, and the question that we have is how many people are going to be added to the inflow and the outflow of this property based on the 6,000 square feet of new office space. There is one entrance in and one exit from the property, and that goes right by my client's property. Additionally, we are concerned about the lighting, which has not been brought up to this point. From the pictures that I have seen, and I think I am much like everyone seated up here, that I didn't see any lights currently in those photographs that depict what the property looks like now. The question is, with these LED lights and how many of them are going to be there, what is going to be the impact to the neighborhood, especially all of those properties that are on the southern border of the property. And again, with the 6,000 square feet of office, again, we're wondering what is that going to do with the traffic? And with the conditional use or the conditional zoning, my understanding is in some instances there needs to be a traffic study, and whether or not that will be identified. We'd like just basically to know what is going to be the impact on the neighborhood. This is a very quiet neighborhood. It's basically a dead end up to that point until you get to this. High Street, which is the street that is just below it, that runs east and west, also appears to dead end there. So really we are looking at, depending on the amount of light, the amount of traffic, that this office space could create could change the neighborhood as it currently exists, which is a very quiet residential neighborhood. And as to the buffering, obviously, with my client, it's probably different than some of the others, but at least as to the entrance, to either have some sort of screening or vegetation at the very beginning, because that's where my client's property is most affected. We would like to see something done there. I mean, even when you go to the Buncombe County dump out near the river, there's at least a very nice looking entrance when you go in. Certainly, we're looking that if this is going to be done at this point, let's spruce it up a little bit. So number one, it looks nicer, and then number two, you don't have to see everything that's going on behind that. That's all I've got at this point.
Ricky, can I have the applicant come up? I know we're in public comment. Can I let them come up and address each one at a time, or do we have to wait till the end?
I would recommend getting all of the questions.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay, yep. Okay. Next on the agenda is,
Campbell?
no, number
Oh,
one.
no.
So Miss
Santangelo.
Thank you. Santiago? Okay, sorry. Thank you.
So I'm Diana Santangelo. I'm actually half owner of Jack Ryan LLC at 64 Washington. I've spoke with a lot of the neighbors. Just as a question, how many of you have been down there? Two, okay. So it's a very tight, narrow road. It isn't lined. It is a huge issue when you set your trash cans out and there's buses coming through. There's maintenance vehicles coming down the road, vendors, suppliers, etc. It's very heavily trafficked already. It's very dangerous, actually. And on Hill Street, which is beside 64 Washington, there's going to be 2 to 3 more houses projected there. The lots have just sold. I've met with the builder. So he's going to put more traffic pulling out into a site area where there is no line of sight. So I guess my projection to the board is to delay any zoning decisions based on the fact that you don't even have the final plans yet. So until you get the final plans of exactly what's going to happen and where it's going to be, it might be light industrial, it might be commercial, but with no control over when it's sold, what could be there. If it's sold, there could be 1,000 units there. The road cannot handle that much traffic. A 6,000 square foot office building, how many offices, how much traffic does that include? The road is at capacity for traffic, and I think that's the huge issue with the neighbor. As far as the fence coming up to the asphalt, remove the asphalt. I mean, that's very easily done. There needs to be at least a 50-foot buffer in respect for the neighbors around there for vegetation and sound. And I think that's not too much to ask, but asphalt can be removed. And the lights can be, shown a different way. I've had these issues on other properties that we have. I think there's a very good solution. The bus garage has been there as long as I can remember, and I've been here for 51 years. So if there's another access to that area, I think that would be beneficial to look at as well. If there's a possible in and out or just another way to get to this property other than Washington. But the road's at capacity now. So to add a 6,000 square foot office building for more traffic, more vendors, people during the day, people at night, I think you're at capacity. I think that's one thing that I would ask that you look at for the neighbors. So I have a rental. I don't live there, but I know in resale value and the neighbors around are very concerned. So if you haven't visited, visit through the day and try to pass a school bus or a fuel truck or a trash truck just try to pass anything on the road. You can't. You have to physically leave the road to pass any vehicle. So that's an issue from day one that should be addressed before any additions or expansions should be done. That's my recommendations. Wait till you have the final plans before you make any decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask, there's no one else signed up to speak for this issue, correct? Okay. Back to you, Ricky.
Right. Do you have any question for me, or we can wait and get the applicant to respond?
I'd like to have the applicant come back up again,
Okay,
please.
all right.
I have a few questions I took notes on, so. So I have like 4 or 5 questions. We'll try to start easy. So right now, what is the current operating hours? Is it just business time, daytime?
Business time, we operate 6 to 6, basically.
Okay.
Probably less than that, but 6 a.m. to, and then, it varies sometimes early. And during the bad weather, we have 1 employee that comes early. But, yeah, typical 6 to 6.
So with the addition of the upgraded wash bay and the extra 6,000 feet, will the operating hours be changing at all?
No,
It'll still just be during business hours?
it's exactly like we've been doing.
Okay. Okay, so I'm trying to address public comment. So how many additional employees do you think will be coming here with the addition of the wash bay and the office space? I know you said you're moving things around. Does that mean you're just keeping the same amount of employees? Just moving?
Same number of employees. Basically, we are reusing the existing office space for either bay storage or changing our parks house, our parks location. So there's not going to be an addition to staff. It's just moving the staff outside of the existing building and reorganizing the interior part of the building.
So it's not necessarily an expansion of your operation. It's just redistributing how it's done.
Correct.
Okay. So you will not be adding any more traffic to the road, basically, than when you currently have. Lighting was a concern. So is there current lighting on the property now? Because I cannot tell that.
So the only lighting on the property are code-required lights at exits and wall packs, basically. We do have canopy lights on the northern end of the property when we fuel at nighttime or early in the morning, which they've been there forever. And our intent would only be to add code-required lights that are dark sky compliant, so there should not be any light pollution at any of our neighbors.
You just kind of answered my question. So you're requesting to use LED, and you will be dark sky compliant, so that it should be vertically down and not horizontally and not up.
Correct.
Okay.
And in terms of site lighting, we're not proposing site lighting except for exterior building lights.
So we're not putting additional parking lights, making a parking lot or anything like that?
There won't be any additional lighting at the entrance.
Yeah.
Any exterior lighting will be the code-required building lights, not like standing poles
Will
with
be
more light.
It's more safety at the
Yeah,
entrance.
be affixed to the buildings at exits, just so you can
Correct.
exit the building safely at nighttime or during the dark times.
And since you're not increasing anything, then I guess a traffic study question would not necessarily be relevant. So, all right, they were the questions I came up with. Does the board have other questions for the applicant?
What about I like the idea of removal of asphalt to give that buffer. Is that something you could do?
So if you've ever been here in the summertime, and when we bring 250 buses in there to park them and work on them, it literally takes every square inch of that parking lot to do
So
that.
that gate up against the entrance there is covered with buses?
Well, the gate itself is not, but all the way up to the gate on both sides. If you go back to that photo, you can actually see one of the one more, I think. So if you see if you're driving in, that bus you see on the left, they start right there and they go all the way down, and they're stacked, double, triple stacked in that parking lot in order to hold them all. And they are backed up to the fence.
And your fence is on the property line, so we don't have all
I don't know that exactly, and that maybe that's something we need to do, is get a survey and see exactly where our property line is, and which a lot of times we normally don't build fences right on the property line. We build it on our side, sometimes significant amounts, so there may be some room there, I don't know.
So,
So you double stack, where that bus is, I see right there on the left side, you double stack buses there?
Probably
So one
triple
backs right up to the front end of it?
Probably triple stack buses right there.
like nose to tail?
Yeah.
So
And
there's
then-
3 rows
Yeah.
all the way around the whole property?
And basically, in the summertime, there's enough room just to they cycle the buses around, and it takes them all summer to get them through their yearly inspection, yearly process of maintenance.
These are standard buses, right? Standard school buses?
Correct.
Okay.
Speaking for the board, I guess, I think we would like to see some kind of a,
Buffer.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Continue.
Some kind of a buffer.
Yeah.
And I'm not inclined to tear up all the blacktop. But I'm just one of the board here, so I'm just throwing ideas out. I mean, I think we should look at doing something,
And
if it's
you know,
possible. that
we're fine with putting some form of privacy fencing or slats in the fence. And even, you know, if it's one reason that safety and security, easy for the patrols to go in there and see the whole campus, and you know, that's a thing too. So that's one thing that we think about, being able to easily see vandalism and, you know, keep that off of that.
Is there is there a door there, a gate door that it closes at night? So
That gate
it's
swings
locked up?
closed, and it's a continuous chain link fence when the gate's closed.
Is it typically secure at nighttime?
Yes, every night.
Okay.
And is it closed and open for each bus, or as the buses come and
No,
go
it's-
during the day?
It's open when it's early in the morning, first person there, and it stays open until they leave. It's not an automatic
That
gate.
that might be something that could be looked at with design for added security, and if it was a solid, I understand what you're saying about wanting to be able to see. If you can't see, then having a little more security to make sure.
I will say we did have a neighborhood meeting for the properties that are abutting the property. Those neighbors showed up and we had a really productive conversation. They were very supportive of this, and they feel, my interpretation of their comments is that they're pretty prideful of being neighbors of this property. They say that they keep watch over the site. I know they've called when they find that someone goes for a walk in there and then the gates get closed at some point, and then they're there like watching the site. And I think one time there was like a young family and the neighbors brought them water, so they're a part of that, like seeing what's happening on the site, and they enjoy being a part of that team.
And those are the neighbors directly touching our property.
So I know the new fencing, they have all kind of new technology out. They have some really nice stuff that gets kind of woven in, looks like green trees. And it's actually pretty good for blocking 90% of the visual, the bad stuff that looks real quick. And it also does help absorb some of the sound. And my history is in electrical substations, so I understand looking in and the police like that. But you can still kind of see through it, so a police officer could come up and they can actually see through it. So, I mean, that's an idea that I would entertain on this, we'll call it the south side, I guess it is. Because the other 3 sides, I don't think really impact any residents. Is that
There's
that
like
true,
a
Ricky?
50-foot buffer. And
only the south side affects the residents?
Yes, yes.
Looked like there was 8 houses across there, from what I could tell.
So, yeah, so let me back up here. Let me get out of this. So, just so you see this, there's the top of this area, I know it's got a weird, top of the 5 area, yeah. But right where, there's a house here and there's a house here. Currently this property, I think, is got a single home that's kind of like down in this area. So right now, this is kind of undeveloped in this area, but it's zone residential. There's existing lots of record. I'll just say that. Could potentially be several houses, but as of today, there's like a house or in this area, and there's another house right here on this. So,
And how about the west stub, we'll call it, that little
Yeah.
section?
like over in here.
That triangle, yes.
Let me go back in here to this area. Yeah, it looks like there's a home right here.
So as being the applicant, would you be willing to, on the, we'll call it the south and I'll call it the west side, those two sides, would you be willing to see what we could work with the town to come up with some type of a buffer, whether it's a woven fence type thing, or if we could, if you do the survey and you have room to plant some arborvitaes or something along there?
We're good here on the
I
west.
think the west, we have a long
Oh, okay.
buffer of vegetation already.
Okay.
This is kind of our,
Yeah,
this has been the
that's
area of
pretty
most
steep.
concerns, like right in here at the end of the gate with existing residences. But yeah,
Can we go to the topical, or map?
up here,
Topographical.
Yeah,
sorry, sorry.
topographical map.
back to the, back into this.
You need a bigger mouse.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do. I wish it'd show up on here.
yeah, that's almost all hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the south side of that fence all along there, is there a space, is there a 3-foot grass strip along there that can become shrubbery?
Yeah, I think we need to clarify that with survey. This is pulled from LiDAR data, just available public data. So the fence line was eyeballed from aerial images. I will say that there is vegetation on, definitely on the neighbor's property. I can't say if it's overlaps onto the Button Pine School property at this time.
So would the applicant be willing, if we put a condition on our approval tonight, that you'll work with the town to come up with some form of a buffer barrier? Is we okay with that? I don't want to stipulate thou shall do this tonight, because I don't know that we don't know.
My question would be, would the question of working with the town be about the whole south side, or just like the entrance portion and the residential properties that are currently?
I would think the whole south side, because it does have lots there, and it may not be a house today, but it could be a house tomorrow.
And the buses, just to think about it this way, and we will work with the town to do whatever we need to do, but, the buses are taller than the fence. So as the buses are backed up there in summertime, you still see the buses parked there.
And I think if we put it in, I think our stipulation would be just to the top of the fence height. If you were gonna go shrubberies, that would be different, but if it falls back to the fence weaving, we'll call it, the fence would be the best we can do.
And that could be, typical chain link fence screening of some sort.
Yeah. Something that is favorable to the neighbors, I mean,
If it looks better clear, then leave it clear. Like if it ends up being, green plastic, ugly things that are stuck through there.
Oh, I'm not
I don't think
thinking-
that's any better, but if it's.
I'm thinking more of the fuzzy,
Sure, right.
looks like tree branches, looks like needles, pine
Right,
needles.
right.
But I mean, that's what Ricky would have to say, what's acceptable out of town too. I don't know if that is acceptable.
On the, weaving of the screening.
Yeah, not the plastic lattice, I mean, that kind of looks worse.
Again, so we're down to a condition, so, I mean, we could have, you could like we were saying, we could do a condition, or you could recommend a condition, they work with the town, that might be something that us three, me and Shannon, us four work between now and the town council meeting date in 2 weeks to come up with more specified condition instead of trying to hammer out an exact numeric rubric tonight,
Yes.
right here.
I don't think we're able to do that because we don't know all the details.
Yeah,
But I think we should try to do something.
Yeah, I would agree, but we could work with
Okay.
the applicant over the next 2 weeks, because it'll be 2 weeks before this would go to town council. It may give them a chance to walk the fence line, try to locate maybe somebody in the office that has a little bit of historical knowledge on the property line on
And
that.
definitely for the public, I'm not trying to make it look worse. I mean, by putting it, make it look really cheesy. So something that looks nice, but it's not restricted to the application.
And I would like to wonder also if we might encourage anything that would, if there were two options and one was more environmentally friendly, that would be lovely too.
Yeah, because if there's space to plant shrubbery, yeah.
But even whatever goes in the fence, if something is,
And I know to Larry's point, I know you were talking about the enclosed, and I asked about the enclosed, but if we're going to put a buffer, or is the board okay that it does not have to be enclosed?
Well,
Or do you prefer that we're going to?
I still think a buffer would be more suitable from a noise standpoint.
I agree.
And what we could do to make sure we minimize any noise to the community, I think would be a benefit. Have you spoken to the homeowners about their side of the property, if there's any opportunity to plant more shrubbery or anything along there?
We have not, and I think it's our best interest to identify that property boundary so we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Okay.
'Cause I honestly think that we probably have a pretty good buffer of property on outside of our fence, if that makes sense.
Have you had any complaints about noise in the summertime with washing buses?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you bring a outside firm in to do high-pressure washing, they do them all, or you just do it all
Just do
in-house?
it all in-house.
Okay.
It's basically a standard pressure washer.
I guess, Ricky, one thing I've seen, and I'm not in Woodfin, but other locations, in lieu of buffer, because sometimes there isn't enough room for a buffer on the property, and I don't want to push somebody to tear up all the asphalt to do that. In the past, the applicant has been willing, other applicants have been willing to plant shrubbery if the neighbors are willing on their property, but once they do, it's a one-shot deal, and the neighbors are responsible for that going on. Is that something that could be done in Woodfin?
Usually, I'll just say, I've not really seen much way where people are planning on other person's property, because it's then very hard. You've put a condition on the property, the applicant here tonight, for somebody else to maintain that, and if they let that die or cut it down, then they're in violation. It's just, it typically has to be on that property. I think the solutions are more like, are you looking at a wooden privacy fence? Are you looking at slats inside of a chain link fence? Are you, again, like you said, digging up asphalt and installing shrubbery? Those are kind of a couple of the solutions per se in that. But I would say, yeah, we definitely don't want to do anything that's on somebody else's property.
Okay.
Or is there space outside the fence, like you said?
Yeah.
There might be a longer
So I think,
space.
priority number one would be if we could have room to put the shrubbery on the outside of the fence. Personally, I mean, let's see, the board agrees, digging up the blacktop and putting shrubbery on the inside of the fence, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense, because you still have the fence on the outside, that's not gonna change. At least on the outside will block it, and if, number one would be to put the shrubbery on the outside, and I guess my vote would be number two would be to put the privacy in the fencing of some type. Does everybody kinda agree with that?
Yeah, but I would say if there's no problem from the homeowners as far as noise level with the type of washing you'd have with an open bay, I would say you don't have to necessarily put in the closed bay. I'm thinking about homeowners and making sure they're satisfied. So that might be a discussion you might want to have with homeowners to come up with it.
Yeah, and that could be something we could explore again with the applicant. Like I said, Shannon and I can work with the applicant over the next 2 weeks about and they can check with the architect a little bit further about enclosing that. And we can also work through the next week and a half, give them a chance. So you could make a general recommendation to, as a condition, add that the applicant work with town staff to investigate either a planted buffer as room allows, and or installation of, the slats within the fence in areas that don't have adequate planting width. I mean, we wouldn't want to shove a leyland in a 6-inch wide trench.
Right.
But there might be, when he goes out there might be 5 feet in places. And so, and that fence may dogleg inward as we go west. So, and then obviously like west side of that property, there's plenty of existing vegetation and trees. It meets the buffer. We're good. There's no modification required on any other side on this property, except the south.
I still like the idea of the enclosed wash bay for capture, reuse, et cetera, of water as we work to be more environmentally conscious in our town.
So we can put the condition that they work with the town, Ricky, and see what is possible. Does the board have any more questions for the applicant?
Not questions, but I think we talked about a couple issues that sounded like they were addressed, but should we add those as conditions in the CZ, that there isn't an increase in traffic, or that any additional lighting that is needed be dark sky compliant You know, so those two things that we talked about, I thought were valid concerns, but we should document that.
Yeah. So they've not asked for any modification on the lighting at all. So the only, well, it's in the sense of the fixture type. It's just LED because of the old ordinance. But the conditions in Exhibit D to comply with Chapter 26. So that is the dark sky compliance. So there won't be.
That's already there.
That's already in there.
Okay.
So we have got that condition in there already. Me and Ariel, I've beat her up a little bit about lighting up to that, kept asking, and she's said it would just be on the building, but it'll still have to be, I'll have to look at the fixtures when it comes in. So I think we're pretty covered on that, and I feel we could work out something. If there's concerns about mass lighting, we can talk about that between now and then if we want to keep that out. But
It's already written
it's,
into
that we've got it.
part of the condition.
And then on as far as I don't know because I don't have an employee head count. I'll just say I'm kind of hesitant to go so far as start limiting a business on head count because honestly, it's going to be very hard for me and Shannon and Marie to patrol if there's 42 people working or 45 people working, if they're part-time. I think they should also know that if this is a CZ, so it's tied to the garage, this car wash in this configuration for the school system. If this property gets sold in 10 years, they'll be operating a bus wash and a bus parking lot for the school system as a contractor. And if they want to sell it to somebody else, and they want to do an apartment complex, if they want to do retail, they'll have to come back to this board and town council to do anything else. And we've written it so tightly that honestly, he wants to do a 500 square foot office addition, they'll be back again.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's where they're tied to. So even another addition, so we can, and we're not at the threshold of a TIA. And
That's a very good point. Maybe that's it, if the issue that was brought up during public comment is that already, without even any change, the existing road is so narrow that it's unsafe for passing, normal bus and, trash truck traffic, then that sounds like something that should be addressed regardless of this, so I don't think that that's an issue necessarily of this rezoning or approval of this project, but how would something like that be addressed anyway? Is that something that, who owns that road?
yeah, it's a town maintained street up to the gate.
Okay.
And so typically, if you have any other large project, you may have, a lot of times they look for what's the direct impact or nexus of that project. So that might be a left turn lane into a project. It may be a pork chop to keep left turn movement in. But we really can't, it's very rare you're going to see where a project like this on the end of a street is going to be responsible for widening the road that's off-site down the street. They may have to go up to an intersection if DOT said they had to put a stoplight in or share a cost on a stoplight. But that's, again, you're looking at DOT. But we're not at any threshold to trigger a TIA, and that's where a lot of that gets implemented through a TIA when you have these small little tweaks. Am I talking out of turn, Shannon?
No, I was just looking it up for Ricky
Yeah.
because he's talking. So the right-of-way is only 25 feet wide.
Yeah.
So the ability to widen it's very narrow. And most of the time, so it's not well recognized that municipalities do not build infrastructure. We do not build roads. We do not extend water lines. We do not build sewer lines. Developers do this. So normally when somebody builds a subdivision, we would require that they build a road that's 20 feet wide. I think this road is probably close to 20 feet wide already, if it isn't now. So that's the standard. It just meets it. I think it's just, it's not unusual at all in Woodfin or other municipalities for cars to have to pull over and let another car pass. That's actually a form of traffic calming. I know people giggle when I say that, but it's true. So it would be a developer's responsibility to widen a road. In this case, this is an existing condition. I think we would, since they're not increasing traffic, they're not doing anything to augment the situation. You would expect it to just stay as is.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
I think that the project has answered a couple of the questions as far as if they were to sell, the new applicant would have to come back to us, so we just can't turn into apartments or houses or whatever. So that's one big issue I saw. The lighting issue was resolved, and the buffer we're going to work on. Does the board have any more questions? Because I would think we could have a motion, and we could include the conditions to work with the town about a buffer, and I think that was the only condition, correct?
No, the car wash. the
Oh,
bus
and work
wash.
with the town to investigate an enclosed car wash. We can throw those two conditions on the existing motion. So is anybody willing to
Tackle that.
read that and add the two conditions?
Do y'all have anything else for the applicant for?
No, I believe we do not have any other questions. We're good. Thank you.
Who wants to tackle that?
And since the applicant seemed to be willing to work with our conditions, let's include them in this.
Yes, please, yeah.
So who would like to try it?
Give me just a minute to write something down.
The master's got.
You could pass it to the low man on the pole.
I could be.
Go for it.
You want to try it?
Sure. I move to approve the conditional zoning of 12.42 acres as shown at Exhibit A and B from residential district R10 to community shopping conditional zoning, subject to the conditions identified in Exhibit D, project conditions, and subject to the following additional conditions, which are that the developer works with the town to look at exploring how you can provide a buffer, and we were going to look at the whether or not we were going to enclose that bus wash.
Okay, so, and the buffer would be along the southern property line?
Southern
correct?
property line.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, just want to make sure.
And find that the request is reasonable and the public interest is consistent with Woodfin Together comprehensive plan and meets the development needs of the community in that request.
Keep reading.
I'm still reading, all right. See, you tricked me.
Yes, he did.
All right.
Page 2.
Project land and buildings for small-scale employment uses 1.2.5 and supports jobs that are locally accessible for the residents to both live and work in Woodfin, 3.1. 2, promotes the geographic accessibility to parks and community spaces across the town, 4.23. And 3, collaborates with the institutional and community partners that enhance residents' quality of life, 4.32. And I'm assuming there's another page. Oh, no, I'm lucky, all right.
So, very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's pull the board here. Okay, Mr. Hanson.
Approve.
Mr. Deroni. Approve. Mr. Hopkins.
Approve.
Mr. Young.
Approve.
And Mr. Hayes, approve. So that approved unanimously, and thank you.
All right.
Good, Ricky?
We'll move. All right, I'll give everybody just a second to move around just a second. And of course, this will be going to.
That's a lot of people.
This, of course, that one will be going to in 2 weeks to town council, so.
Okay,
I don't
next
want
up
you to trick me again.
on the list is number 2, which is a request to conditionally rezone 7.84 acres located at 9999 Reynolds Mountain Boulevard from community shopping CS district to a community shopping 2 conditional zone CS2-CZ. Property is identified in the Buncombe County tax record as PIN 9730-79-9689. The applicant is Andera Gonzalez / Rocky River, North Carolina LLC on behalf of the property owner, Shri Harry Krupa LLC. And I apologize for my names here.
Yeah, I will not make any comment. So as you said, it's 7.84 acres. That's located on almost the tail end of Reynolds Mountain Boulevard. It seems to be a popular location as of late, inquiries for us and Marie. They're looking at a single building that's 120 units, and they're striking at the 8% AMI, so anything of 8% or less is considered affordable for the Buncombe-Asheville area. And that's all based on the size of the family. So the income, as you know, we've talked about before, the income level for one person is much less, obviously, than for a five-person household. So I can't say that it's $50,000 is 80%. It just varies based on that chart. So here's the zoning map as orientation. You have on the bottom left, you see the ramp for the New Bridge interchange coming off I-26. That's in that lower left. The other line, north-south, is Weaverville Road. And then you see our hatched area to the right bottom. That's the property. If you recall, we have a couple parcels over to the left. Back last summer, we had a senior housing complex that's on this road. But working kind of from Weaverville Road back, you've got a small shopping center in the bottom left. I wish I could point. Let me just escape here. So down here is the hotel that's been under construction for about 4 years. We have the senior housing complex that was approved last summer that they're working on getting permit approval. We have the private, I think, Christian school in this area, and there's I think a dentist office right here. Our subject site here, that's, as you can see, was previously graded. That's kind of an important factor tonight. And then this is a affordable housing complex by Mountain Housing. Yeah, so existing affordable housing complex. And that one is R10. And then we have a skilled, I think it's nursing facility directly across the street. That's another R10 parcel. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a lay of the land on that one.
Ricky, can I ask a question about the affordable housing part of it?
Yes.
Who oversees that?
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, if they sell them at affordable housing prices now, what happens 5 years now on resale? Or this is a apartment complex? Or
It's an apartment complex, yeah.
So they're not selling as rentals?
It's rental. This one's a rental.
So are they capped by the township based upon a chart?
We don't actually, per se, directly regulate what's affordable. That income number, it's a web. I'll say this to make sure. It's a web of things. It's depending on who their funding, grant sources are. If you're getting money from Buncombe County, or if there's like a rezoning, a lot of times there's like 20 or 30 year minimum commitment. Does that sound right, Shannon, on that?
In this particular case, I believe it's affordable in perpetuity. Yeah, so this is an affordable housing project. This isn't a private development where 10% of the units are being dedicated for affordable. This is an affordable, fundamentally affordable housing project.
100%.
100% of the
way.
units
Okay.
being rented at 80% AMI. And that 80% changes year after year, depending on what the area median income is. So it is the applicant's obligation to make sure that the people who are the renters, that their income verified, checked, and I imagine they can probably speak to that some this evening, but they have their own management company, and they'd be responsible for doing that. If we learn that something is awry, we will investigate it, but otherwise the town is not checking their rent rolls every year or anything like that. We don't have the staff for that.
So, as an example, okay, if the AMI is $90,000, which that's ballpark for this area, 80% of that would be like $72,000?
It's not that straightforward. No. But there are, Buncombe County publishes the rates every year. So it's always being published and looked at, so the applicant would have access to that information every year.
So Buncombe County would make what the rate would be for the
Well, they just
apartment?
publish it. I mean, 80% AMI, the AMI is determined by census data, and then they just sort of publish how that formula works. So for a one-bedroom, it's this much. For a two-bedroom, it's this much. For a three-bedroom,
That just came out recently. It was a little over 90,000.
Yeah, I think you're talking about, which might be the family of four AMI. I think that's what we started out with.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that, yeah, it changes, so.
So I guess my question was, they just can't get their foot in the door by selling us a affordable housing and then next year turn around and raise all
Correct,
the rates.
they
on it.
cannot.
That's, okay.
Yeah. It is a condition of this approval,
Okay.
this project, so.
Do we have any?
Yeah, so like Shannon said, it's complicated on that. You can find the AMI table, and I think Shannon's actually found what's the most recent, so if we need to share that to the board, we could share you what those incomes are, but just so you'll know, but it varies So moving on through the presentation here. So this is kind of the overall plan. They haven't dug all the way into designing full-on grading plans because they're trying to get entitlement and trying to get all their grant funding together and resources to make the project happen. But again, so way orientation up is east, so that's mountain housing to the top. That's existing apartments. And at the bottom of the screen, you see kind of the edge of the school property there. And you see it's one singular long building that's oriented north-south that's kind of built into the side of the mountain. It's 3 stories on the uphill side, top, and 4 stories downhill side. And in talking with the applicant, the retaining wall that normally would have been required, they're actually kind of using it down the middle of the building. So there's not going to be a huge 20-foot retaining wall on one side of the property. They're kind of splitting the level down the middle of the building. So they're kind of notching in. And we'll see that here in a minute.
Since they're going above our 35-foot
They
ceiling,
are, yeah.
they're going to need a variance?
They're going to get that's what modification of CZ lets you do.
Okay.
So they don't have to get a CZ, they don't have to get a variance. There is some streams on each end of the property, and they're showing a driveway, and they'll be putting a sidewalk along Reynolds Mountain Boulevard. You can barely see it, but we require a sidewalk along that road due to the size of the project, so we'll get another sidewalk portion. Yes, sir.
Is that the full extent of the property line?
That would be the full extent of the road frontage, correct.
Okay.
So here's kind of an elevation. This is the downhill side. That height scales out to about 60 feet from the ground level up to the top on this side. And then here's that cross section. It shows you uphill, downhill. So when you scale the uphill side, it was closer to like 38. And so when I done an average in a couple sections on the first review, it was like 46, 48 feet as you move up and down the facade a little bit. So I put in an average of 48 foot tall. There's a condition, if you look at Exhibit D, that says the maximum height is no more than 60 feet, 4 stories on the downhill, no more, I think I said 38, 3 stories on the uphill with an average of 48. That way we don't get some facades that are over excavating or something. But this gives you an idea of that cross section. You can see where that retaining wall would be is where it notches down. So it's built into the building. So it's kind of a unique thing. A lot of times they will grade out a pad and we'll have a huge wall, either a cut wall or fill wall. So they're kind of integrated into the building and hiding it. Road up to the site, there's a lot of brushy material. It was graded prior to our steep slope regulations, so it looked like about 2020, 2021 when it was graded. When you look at the 2020 aerial photos, it shows trees. When you look at our most recent aerial photography, you've seen that. There's like almost like a racetrack oval in there. But about 21 was when that was completely denuded. I think there was a previously approved development that kind of maybe done some clearing and grading and removed all the vegetation, and then just stopped. It just stopped. And so that's where it's been. So we'll go back to that. Let me go back to the aerial. I think what's important to note, it is above the 2200 elevation contour. It is about 24-25% average natural slope. So it is subject to the grading limits of 15%. It is also subject to the 8% impervious area for the overall site.
So the grading limits, since there was already previously grading,
We
does that go based upon what it currently is, not what it previously
Yeah.
was?
So we would, normally if somebody comes in, we'd let somebody redisturb what's already been denuded. So in this case, that kind of P-shaped racetrack, we'd let you regrade that area, but if you're at 60% graded, you're not going a square foot over that. So that could affect the actual building pad. Impervious area, there's nothing there. So you're still stuck at 8%. So probably laying asphalt on the racetrack there would probably almost get you to the 8% pretty quickly. So, yeah, that's going to...
Are they able to meet and stay under that 8%?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the project will not come close. It will come way over that. There's no way to do the project. So that's some of the modifications that are listed here. I just wanted to point out that they can regrade it, So that's always one of the most sensitive things about steep slope is grading in that area. But we recognize the fact that the trees and a lot of that vegetation's already been removed. It's already been kind of flattened to a large degree. And that 24% average is an average of the big flat area you see and a couple steep places that are on the periphery that remain. And so again, back to you see they're looking to, you know, have some plantings on the periphery of the site, which there's already some existing trees.
A lot of asphalt.
Yeah, when you have this number of units, with 120 units, you have to have at least a parking space per unit. So again, like modifications requested, again, we're back to the LED. Everybody's went to LED. We'll eventually get to.
We're doing that because our standards don't include that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about sodium and the halogen lights in our code. It's our code's just got some age on it. We'll get to LED eventually. And then, like I said, modification of the maximum height limit to an average of 48 feet. So if you recall, back in the fall, we updated our height standards, and we say the tallest point of the building, shortest point of the building, add them together, divide by 2, that's your average. So we made it simpler. So when I looked at it, I got about 46 and a half. Again, we may want to ask the applicant, I put 48 to give them a little bit of wiggle room, because if they're at 48 1 inch, I can't approve it. So it's kind of airtight. And then as a secondary, I said the maximum 4 stories, 60 feet on the downhill, 3 stories, 35 on the uphill. And then the other, as I mentioned, steep slope, they haven't gotten to a grading plan. They've not done all the engineering. Again, I approximated out that's probably about 75% graded based on their plan. Again, putting a few extra square feet. I'm trying not to bind this up too quickly, as an 80% grading, and then the 50% impervious surface. So that's clearly some modifications on height, big ones, modifications on height, modification on grading, modification on impervious. If you're grading over an acre, which they will be, they'll have to do stormwater. So even if they were 49% impervious, this project still requires a stormwater device. So I know our code says about 50%, but that's for small lots. So they'll still be doing a stormwater device.
And the use of LED lighting, is that in the standards, it's dark sky compliant?
Yeah, our code is dark sky compliant.
So we don't have to ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that's exempted in our lighting code is 1 and 2 family dwellings. And so we don't have to add that condition. They're required to be dark sky compliant. It's just what's the bulb putting out. And so obviously staff is supporting. I mean, there's a lot of considerations. I mean, it's very rare that you get affordable housing that's 100% affordable, and the applicant's looking at being at perpetuity. I mean, that's a very rare find. In the staff report, I will say this, I had put down 60% AMI in the staff report, and I was, and I wanted to correct that, and that was not that it was untrue, but that they wanted to make sure they had a little bit of wiggle room in their formulas, their pro forma, and they can explain to you why I had put 60. So I wasn't delusional when I put that in. It wasn't a stroke error, but I did update the conditions tonight, and the staff report's been updated, but I wanted to point that out. And then I'll stop right there. Let me back up here. And with that, if you got any questions for me, I'll stop, and I think they have a very good lot of information that they shared with me and Shannon in our initial pre-app that they can share with y'all.
Any questions for Ricky right now? Okay, would the applicant please come forward? And can you please state your names and addresses for the record and who you represent?
Anything else, let me know, but you can just air across like that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Jordan Nider. This is Andrea Gonzalez. We're the applicant team. We are here representing Fitch Art Corporation. Just a little bit about us. We're based out of Charlotte. Affordable housing is what we do. It's all we do, and we do it all through the Southeast, Virginia, North and South Carolina, Georgia, and some in Kentucky. This project specifically, Doing something in Asheville, it's no secret how much affordable housing is needed in the city as prices have increased and there's a huge housing need. We've been looking here for a while and been wanting to do something in this region and have been really excited about this deal here in Woodfin. I do want to say, so we are governed by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, so that's federally funded. So we have strict compliance guidelines, so there's no worry about us getting in the door and us charging more for people. We are held to a standard, and those rents are also governed by HUD, and those are put out based on studies that they do that we have to meet. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. Additionally, we are applying for some additional grants because doing a project like this is not cheap. We had a general contractor that priced this that has done a lot of work out here in Western Carolina, and doing a project like this is very expensive. So because of that, we did have to change little things about our targeting. We are targeting 80% AMI, but additionally 80%, 60%, and 30% AMI. So we have a wide range there to help try to make it affordable for a lot of different types of people groups there. And with the affordability, so we also applied for the Buncombe County Housing Fund. They have funds available that we apply for, and which can help make a project like this come to life. With that, we have an affordability commitment of 30 years. So we are committed to this being affordable housing for 30 years. Not saying at 30 years this doesn't, it just, at that point, the property would need to be rehabbed or something of that sort, but we are held to a 30-year minimum standard of keeping this affordable. With that being said, we're happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
And just to reiterate, that 30 year is just a land use restriction.
Yeah.
What we do is affordable housing. It's never our intent to come in and then change it to market rate. No. It's just that's kind of what the compliance period is. And then standard, what we've done with our aging portfolio is we come back and we apply for additional funding, rehab it, and bring it back up to life, and then they'll put an additional land use restriction on it. But it's not in perpetuity. It's not, we're not able to do that under this. So
So it's not deed restricted then?
It is, it's a land, it's a
It is deed restricted.
land use restricted agreement that's put on it for 30.
Okay.
30 years, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we correct
Yeah.
that.
We'd have to protect the town past that 30 years.
And so you would only be expecting to update it every 30 years? Is
Not
that-
necessarily, no. We might come in at year 10 or year 15 and see a need for a rehab and apply. And we have to go through this whole process with the agency again in order to do a rehab. So, and we obviously, it's in our best interest to do that as we are the property owner, and we want, the best for our residents and the best for the property.
That's right. We're the property owner, we're the property manager.
Well,
We have 15.
What would a rehab be? I mean, what are you talking about, a rehab? What, tell me about a rehab.
You upgrade to the facility?
Go
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what's your definition of a rehab for that building?
You mean in 15, down the road?
Yeah,
Or just
down the
ongoing
road,
maintenance? I mean, it's a complete gut typically. I mean, when we do it, we take it down to the studs,
Yeah.
update it for all of the HVAC, electric, I mean, it's, all the MEPs get updated, the roof, the siding, the everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about the design and building itself? So, I mean, if one way to go make things affordable is to go, build it very cheaply and poorly and ugly and cheap materials and hot water heaters that break or who knows. So what holds you to quality standards on things like that?
Yeah, great question. So North Carolina Housing Agency has a design minimum requirement that we have to meet. So that goes through a whole board process, and our plans get reviewed. And we also are required to do all Energy Star rated and go through that whole process as well for all our HVAC and all our hot water heaters and all that sort of thing. And our units get tested in order to pass all those standards. So with that, the agency also looks and approves that as well. So it's not just whatever we feel might be the cheapest, but it's also the best as they feel for the tenants.
Okay. So you're not just a private owners, you have oversight by the county and the state.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And then you're also the landlords going forward, so you're the property owners?
Correct.
and
We,
sta-
yeah,
You
so,
don't come in, build it, and then leave?
yes, sir. Yeah, we have our own internal property management company that will manage the company, manage the property.
Will you,
All apartments are accessed from inside and none from the outside?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
will your property management have any on-site presence?
Absolutely.
Consistently?
Yeah, absolutely. So there'll actually be a common space located in this building that will have a manager leasing office. It'll have a computer lab. It'll have like a common space for tenants to gather and whatnot.
How many units are you proposing?
120 units.
And do you have a breakdown as to whether, how many bedrooms they are, each one, like one bedroom, two bedroom, how many of each? I'm just, at a high level, I'm just curious.
Can I go back on?
We have 1, 2s, 3s, and 4s.
Okay.
This is not just
Yeah.
studios and one bedrooms, and I know that's something that you guys are, that you see a lot of, but
Right.
we are trying to target the family.
The families.
4-bedroom?
There's 10% of them are 4 bedrooms, so it's only 12, but we do have 4 bedrooms in it.
And you'll have enough room for all parking, because it's based upon how many residents?
Yeah,
correct?
that's another great question. So the agency actually requires us to do a minimum of 1.75 parking spaces per unit, which is why we have so much parking. We have 210 parking spaces. That allows us to be able to have adequate parking for all the units as we target families in this kind of development.
Do you have any other developments in Buncombe County and Haywood County that are?
In Buncombe County, we don't, but we have one in Canton.
County.
Yeah, and we also have one in Marion, Spalding Woods Apartments. But yeah, Buncombe's been on our list. We've been really working hard to try to.
What's the one in Canton called?
I think it's called Smoky Meadows. Yeah.
I was going to ask the same question, and with the thought of, here, as you go do the design, are there things that you've taken into consideration for the area, like the Reynolds Mountain Village, or if you look at, going toward Asheville, if you drive into town, you'll see all these new, cool-looking apartments actually along Broadway. So the face of these, I saw here, it actually kind of has a similar kind of look and feel. How is that taken into account for your design?
Yeah, so
Area.
absolutely. So we definitely want to fit into the area. We're not trying to be, a very modern or whatever. What we want to fit into the area that we're in. And with the use of vinyl siding, brick veneer that fits in, is similar to other developments, is always, along with our elevations, is something we look to try to incorporate. And all of our landscaping, like we will include everything that's native to Western, North Carolina, make sure that's part of our design.
And we have developed some recent stuff too. I don't know if you know Harrison Terrace in Marion, North Carolina as well, which we've got some pictures if we need to show
Yeah,
you
I'm happy to
guys.
pull up some
Happy
pictures
to
if
pull
you
up
guys
some
would like to
photos
see.
So you can get a feel, but we like to be, to Jordan's point, we don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. We're here to stay and we want to be a part of the community.
Is that
Rick, I know you're not right up here, but I mentioned vinyl siding. That's not allowed on commercial properties, correct? But then we have a restriction on that?
It's so tight up here, dancing. No, we don't actually have any commercial
Oh, okay, I thought there was.
appearance standards in Woodfin. And
Okay.
it's not very common in North Carolina anyway.
For some reason, I thought there was some kind of building materials that we were restricted on for commercial buildings, but maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, we don't have anything, we don't even have a historic district right now either.
You can make it a condition because it's a CZ, but that's a possibility, but otherwise not.
Okay.
I will say the vinyl siding that we do use is mandated by NCHFA, North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, to a specific thickness. In the current construction environment that we're in, it is something that we are seeing to help be able to continue keeping these apartments affordable, to help keep the cost down. But it does not, in my opinion, affect the aesthetics of it.
Ricky, this says it's your computer, right? Is there a browser on there that's already open? Would it be easy to pull up one of your websites?
I can pull up my laptop and show you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know which is easier, to swap out the cord on the thing or to bring up a browser, whatever's easiest.
Jordan came prepared.
I think it'd be just helpful to see some of the other developments that they had their website up there.
Next month, we'll have a tablet, and we can look it up ourselves.
Right.
That's fine.
Oh, you weren't here, we're getting tablets next month.
Like this, and take this out of the way.
Yeah,
Is it HDMI?
it's been taken 2 years ago. So.
So again, that's just kind of going over Canton, Smoky Meadows, and Hendersonville. We have Cedar Terrace, too far. So this is just one we did in North Charleston, one of our better looking properties, Bulls Creek.
But I think that one is a really great, and you'll see one coming up, how we really do pride ourselves in trying to make it look like the area that we are going into.
There's Harrison Terrace.
Now, are any of these close to what you're planning?
This building, if you're on the left side of your screen, is actually a 3-4 split.
Okay.
You'll see that it's 3 on one side, and if you kind of see how it kind of terminates down into that hill behind there, that's actually that has a retaining wall that actually sits alongside. If you actually see those bushes to the left of it, just on the other side, there's probably a knee wall, thigh wall, retaining wall, and that's what was carried through the building. That's a smaller footprint than what we're proposing, but that is a 3-4 split.
And that elevation is very similar to what our building.
It's designed by the same architect.
Yes.
Yeah, so something there, when you're doing final design in the area, peaky type roofs like that, as opposed to some of the others that you would see would fit the area.
Absolutely, yeah.
But as long as there's kind of, the faces have levels to them, in and out like that, like as opposed to something just a
That's
flat
right.
rectangle.
Absolutely. We try to give it some depth,
just
from an aesthetic point of view.
Except the question was asked, well, I guess those are just balconies, they're not entrances, correct? Because you said that all
Correct,
entrances.
they're just balconies.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I will say it's a little bit different, because you're absolutely right. These are entered through the building to the left that I'm referencing, that is the 3-4 split. There's 2 entry points, and then you have kind of your stairwells that go up. The building that we're proposing, you go in, and the hallways are interior.
Okay.
Just, I know I skipped over these, but these are just.
Is that the
again,
kind
ours
of
will be a
length?
little different. What's that?
Is this going to be like kind of the length that building will be, or?
This is 76 units, so it's actually
Okay.
the one that we're proposing is a little bit bigger. This
Yeah, a
is a
little
senior
bigger.
housing facility.
Gotcha.
And the parking is still designed similar to that, I believe, what we saw in the, it's.
That's right,
correct.
just entering the
Very
end
similar,
instead of
yeah.
the center.
And that's closer to the entrances you were talking about with the interior hallway.
Closer, different architects, so this
Yeah,
one is,
yeah.
I mean,
Even the elevation's a little
yeah,
different, but yeah, similar.
similar.
Interior hallways as
That's
opposed
right.
to,
That's right.
Yes. Yep.
Do we have
Thanks for
questions?
bringing that up.
Absolutely.
Still more questions for applicants? Go, Larry.
The main road going in, and it's maintained by the town. And I see a lot, having been involved in construction, I see a lot of heavy equipment going into that facility. What happens to the damaged roads that take place? Who's going to take care of those? Is that going to be something that you're going to be responsible for?
So in our construction, there is long-term damage to the roads. That's always something that we are amenable to. I mean, we want to leave it the way we found it. Charleston's a great example. Building on the peninsula right now, they have granite curbing, if you believe it or not, and we've had to remove that, store it, and then we bring it back, and if it's been damaged, we replace it. In a setting like this, I don't foresee it being too much, but if it is.
Well, we have asphalt roads.
There's big speed bumps on that one all of a sudden.
There's a lot of heavy weight in the equipment that'll be coming in, so I'm concerned about the damage to the road,
Understandably.
and it shouldn't be something that the town should be responsible for, I don't think.
So we would not be responsible for it. developer would be responsible. We do have standards in the town that says if damage is caused by construction, then it is the responsibility of the person who caused the destruction to repair it. Similarly, if you were going to do a utility cut or anything like that, we do require permits for that, and they are required to patch it and put it back in a condition that is suitable to the pre-existing condition. It does require that we kind of monitor that construction activity, so we will be looking at the condition of the road before construction. We will check the condition of the road after construction. So.
And I'm assuming there already is water and sewer ability or capabilities there?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Water man?
Is there a bond required for this project?
Is there a what?
A bond required for the project?
The town will have to speak to that. Is a bond required for this?
We would only require a bond, like for site improvements, at the point that they were going to get a CO. So if they have to either put everything in, so the stormwater system, all the landscaping, the asphalt on the parking lot, if they wanted to move people in to a portion of the building, then they would have to bond that. So like say landscaping would be that example. It's the middle of the drought, they're ready to move people in, it's July, we'd have them bond the landscaping until the next planting season. With an apartment building, you're not going to bond and have like half the building occupied because they can't get but one CO for an apartment building. So we won't get into much way of a TCO. It'll probably just be like a couple site elements, and we'll hold a bond for the stormwater to the end typically.
Okay.
Sure.
Any more questions? No. All right, we have the right to call you back up. We're going to open up to the public.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
And I'm sorry, what was your name?
Andrea.
Okay, so, and you're Jordan? Okay, so that's two people off the list, so we don't, that's all right.
There's no one else.
I'm going to ask, there's no one else in the public to make comment, correct? Because we don't have anybody on the list. Okay, so Ricky brings that back to you
Yeah.
and us.
So I guess if you want to open the public hearing and then close the public hearing.
I guess, yeah, we'll open up the public, and then we're going to close the public because we have no one here for this discussion. Do we have any other questions from the board at all, from Ricky or anyone?
No.
And you got stuck with the first one, so.
I'm gonna get stuck.
If Ricky pulls up our
I'm trying to get back.
cheat sheet, is there someone that's willing to? Scott?
I move to approve the conditional zoning of 7.48 acres as shown on exhibits A and B from community shopping to community shopping to,
Yeah, community shopping 2.
is this the correct, or is this the
It's
previous?
going from community shopping to community shopping 2.
I gotcha, yep, community shopping to community shopping 2, conditional zone, subject to the conditions identified in the Exhibit D project conditions, and
We don't have any issue.
find that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the Woodfin Together Comprehensive Plan, and meets the development needs of the community, and that the request promotes a mix of housing types and affordability options by working with developers to incorporate income-restricted housing into new developments, promotes long-term fiscal responsibility by growth in areas with existing services, and supports walkable employment centers so that residents may both live and work in Woodfin.
I second that motion.
Okay. Let's poll the board. Mr. Hanson?
Approve.
Mr. Deroni? Approve. Mr. Hopkins?
Approve.
Mr. Young?
Approve.
Mr. Hayes, approve. So it is unanimously approved. Thank you. Good luck. Congratulations. Ricky, then they have to come back in for
It has
site
this-
plan approval and stuff, right?
Say again?
Like a site plan approval or?
Oh, yeah, well, if they get approved at town council, then they have to submit detailed site plan stuff. So that's where we'll go through the detail in the landscaping, if they retain wall heights, the sidewalk standard, the driveway permit.
And will that come back before us or that?
We'll do the detailed review, so you're doing the entitlement.
Okay.
Fingers crossed we get funding.
Yes, that's what they're doing. They gotta get funding.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Okay, next up is item
Yes, I
number.
do have one quick question. If they don't get funding, I guess it just dies, right?
Well, there is a condition in Exhibit D, so if they don't, it goes on the property, but I think they're asking that, we'll have to initiate a rezoning back. Yes, the project would be locked in, but they want to have it where we would initiate a rezoning back. I think the property owner wants that, so we should hopefully know that pretty soon. I think their cycle is pretty short. Hence the reason why it's here tonight and planning to go to town council in 2 weeks is because the deadlines to have entitlements are pretty close. So hopefully we'll see that project come out of the ground. Does the board need a break at all?
You want to take a 10-minute recess, or?
It's up to y'all, I'm good.
Go.
No, we're going to continue.
Okay.
That may change, but we're going to try for now.
All right.
Item number 3, request for text amendments to Chapter 54 of the Town of Woodfin Code of Ordinances to clarify and update definitions and standards affecting manufactured housing to create a new manufactured housing overlay district and a new manufactured home community district. Ricky.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Ms. Biddix, sitting in the back, man, the camera, has done a tremendous amount of research into manufactured housing. I've worked with manufactured housing for my 25 years in zoning and planning, and Marie did enough research that I learned quite a bit, almost giddy about what I learned about manufactured housing. You can tell I'm a nerd about zoning, but I just wanted to make sure I toot Marie's horn. So I might be presenting. I may call on Marie to come up and help me a little bit, but she's done a tremendous amount of work for us on it. So like I said, as y'all know, we have manufactured housing in our zoning code right now. It is a very old section, very old. And so this proposed text amendment, like I said, is updating that article, and it does a couple things. Like I said, it creates a manufactured housing overlay. That's part of the map amendment. That's the second half of this process. And then it creates a manufactured home community district, which we are not actually applying to any property tonight. We're just going to create the text in the ordinance for maybe later. So just don't get too confused about the overlay and the district when we talk about them. So so that's the other thing. Another thing we're doing is we're modernizing definitions, we're updating standards, and not to bore you with the details, but right now what we have is we pretty much don't allow for any type of like single-wide manufactured house in Woodfin. When you read the code, single-wides are not allowed town-wide. All of our manufactured home parks, people call them trailer parks or mobile home parks, if you want to call them that, those are all legal non-conforming, and they're mostly zoned either community shopping or R10. So that's kind of what you'll find in town is those two. You can replace a single wide with a single wide if you do it in a certain amount of time, like 180 days, swap it out. That's pretty much it. So no individual lots, period. Boop.
Can I ask a question? Can you define manufactured housing? Because we're not talking about prefabs, right?
No.
We're talking about what I'm going to call mobile.
Yep. So there's, me and Marie's talked about, manufactured housing is kind of an umbrella term that would capture anything created or in a factory. So that could be like a SIPS panel.
Can
I can grab it.
Thank you. Sorry, I just haven't. Thank you.
So I don't want to run the rabbit too far, but succinctly, manufactured housing for our terms tonight is going to be a HUD code home.
Okay.
So we'll call that distinctly from a modular, which is a stick-built home in a factory. It doesn't have any relation to how that housing unit arrives to the site, whether it's on a truck, a trailer, the back of a yak. It doesn't matter how it gets there. It's what's the code that's built under. So let's say that manufactured housing is HUD code homes. And they come in what we'll call a single section, a single wide. That's typically a 14, 16 wide unit by X feet long. Typically maxes out about 80. And then we'll call it, we're broadening it to say multi-section, multi-section, because typically that's a double wide. You'll have half the house, right? And they put it together at the marriage wall. There's occasionally you'll run into some things that are called triple wides, where there'll be actually 3 sections across. That might be a family room on the back. And there's even some that you'll find that they're actually 2 double sections that are teed together or L'd together. So you can get a very large home delivered. Don't see it typically here in the mountains because of our topography and roads, but you'll see it down the middle part of the state and eastern. I've done a couple triple wides myself, permitting in another county.
Would this include what seems to be popping up now with these C-vans, I'll call them C-boxes?
No. So if it's not a HUD code home or built to North Carolina building code, residential code, then it falls into a different class. And so, like I'll talk about, like there's tents, membrane structures, and then there's a tiny home on wheels. That's a vehicle. So that's an RV. That's not built to any type of dwelling standard. So we would not be permitting part models that like mini single wides.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not part of this. And we would not be allowing tiny homes on wheels. We wouldn't allow people to take a shed and convert it into something else unless they meet state building code. So,
Well, from what I've been seeing, the new C-boxes are actually getting HUD stickers now.
if it's got a HUD sticker, depending on what it is, it may be go in one of these districts.
Okay.
All right. So if it's who's making it, because if it's C-box, if it gets a HUD stamp or a HUD sticker, then it could be a single section or a double section. It just depends.
And we're going to allow them?
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So potentially, yes.
Okay. Because I mean, like that one that's on Riverside Drive, that restaurant that's downtown.
Yeah. The shipping containers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Typically
Is it gonna
shipping
include that? Because
containers-
they're getting HUD stickers now on those things.
Now those are getting. Go ahead, Shannon. I was going to say all the ones I've seen that are shipping containers.
Yeah.
Those have been getting engineered and they're getting converted to North Carolina building code.
Okay.
So everything, like the restaurants, that's North Carolina building code, commercial code. So I have not run across a shipping container for HUD, because that's typically in a factory. You can get an engineer and an architect design professional to get you to the state building code. Most people make that leap with alternative construction into the North Carolina building code.
I think Ricky's probably going to get to this at some point, but when it comes to housing, 1 and 2 family dwellings, which manufactured housing falls in this category, we cannot regulate aesthetics. That is prohibited in the state of North Carolina. So whether it is got a metal exterior, vinyl exterior, it's wood, we don't have any control over that. So if we permit a timber frame, house with stone, we have to permit the vinyl sided manufactured housing, unit if it is permitted in that area, if we have the overlay. So, what it looks like on the outside, we don't have any control over that. So I just want to preempt any discussion about adding special standards along those lines, because there's just no way to do it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hadn't got there yet. Thanks, Shannon. But yeah, and that's part of the reason why the update is that in 2015, the state of North Carolina come in and told local governments that they cannot regulate the aesthetics, roof pitches, the materials on the outside of a house, the placement of a garage. Really, you can't do much roof pitches on anything that meets 1 and 2 family residential code. So, so we have almost, at this point, the old code and law across the state, you wind up with 2 classes of housing now, not just the fact that they're HUD and single-family stick-built home, but now you've got 2 groups of people that are buying or building homes that one is protected by state law on how their houses look. Like they can put metal siding, they can go with a flattened shed roof, they can make it 14 foot wide and 50, 75 feet long and build it. And then we've got another group of people that are buying a home that's built that just coincidentally is a HUD code home, and all of a sudden we're into like you got to have a roof pitch, you've got to have a certain type of foundation, you got to have a certain type of siding. We're worried about the reflectivity of it, and that's a group of people's housing choice that we're all up into. But you could literally go and build that house exactly like a single wide home. And Maria actually showed me today, she found a single section 14 by 76 modular home so it looked exactly like a single wide manufactured house, but it was a modular home. And that house I could not do anything with as far as how it looks. It looked exactly like, so. Okay, keep going. Yeah, Shannon wants me to keep going because she knows I like it too much. That said, so we're talking about the actual overlay. So the areas in gray, most of that area on the right-hand side is west of the river. Doesn't include Crest Mountain or the Rock Springs, the very bottom of the screen. So you're seeing basically Olivet, Flynn Branch, Farm Road, Old Leicester Highway. And it doesn't change the zoning. It just adds this overlay. This overlay would add the ability to put a double wide home, let's say, in any area on here with or without a masonry foundation. There's some areas that are R43 that don't allow it, so it would add that option for these property owners. It would also add single wide sections to this entire area with or without a masonry skirting. So you could put one with vinyl underpinning in this area as well. That's also, as well as this Bannister Hogan view on the left side. That's kind of across from the old landfill where the solar panels are at. This neighborhood is a predominantly manufactured home subdivision. It's all individual lots. There's numerous double or multi-section homes, but I counted about 5 or 6 single section in there. So it just allow people more certainty of a housing option, provide them a choice, and give them more surety in knowing that they could replace their home if it'd be removed, it caught on fire, and then it had to be gone. They were displaced for a year for insurance purposes. They know I could put it back. So that's one major change as far as the overlay. That's our second vote, is to apply that to this area. The other big thing would be it would allow double wides town wide. So there's a lot of areas that are R10 and R7 in town that are close in. We already allow that. We're just opening it up to just a few other districts like R21 and R43. It doesn't affect private covenants. So if a neighborhood precludes manufactured dwellings, zoning laws will not affect that. So I don't know if Reynolds Mountain or Versant Vertano would allow manufactured housing. If they could get a waiver from the POA, then good. If not, that's not our deal. And so, there's just a couple things just to keep in mind, that these are design standards like roof pitches, orientation on the lot, the type of foundation. That's not applied to 1-2 family stick built. Modulars are the same way. They're permitted single family. And there's some perceptions around HUD code homes. People think they're inferior in quality. They think they're less likely to appreciate, and they think there's negative impacts on surrounding values of property. I think there's been some more research as they've been around over the past 20, 30 years, that when you have a home attached to real property that they're appreciating, and they're appreciating and actually holding value or increasing the value for the person that lives in the home. And then finally, zoning is one of the biggest obstacles for manufactured housing in our area. Is that, like we said, you can buy a house that looks like a 2-section double wide, and you can pay $30,000 to $50,000 more and get it upgraded to a modular. It changes the looks none. It just buys you out of the zoning penalty. So somebody's having to pay $50,000 or $60,000 more just to get out of the zoning regulation. And it just makes it difficult. And then we're not designing, and we're imposing design standards, again, like roof pitches and materials. So we're just trying to level the playing field of what an individual family needs for housing. And a lot of times there's a lower barrier or lower cost threshold for people to purchase manufactured housing. Honestly, there's not a lot of single wide shipments anymore, but it would produce some option. It may be the one thing that gives somebody a foot in the door for stability and a living situation. Yes, sir.
if a person has a single wide home on a lot, can they replace it with a double wide?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, technically, if they're in the right zoning district, right,
Yeah.
this would make it
And
very.
they have the area to be able to do it?
Yeah, they gotta meet the setbacks, yeah.
Okay.
So, we've not had really many, we've only had one of those since Maria and I have been here, and that was in a correct zoning district, we had to deal with setbacks. But it would open it up to a couple other zoning districts that are smaller in town.
So, can you explain some of the way that so what's the difference between the zoning for the districts, the R, whichever they are, I don't know if they're tens or, that are on the west side of the river currently, from the districts that are on the east side where what's the difference then when you have an overlay versus when you don't? So today, or what's the difference to today versus, without an overlay to today or tomorrow adding an overlay? What does that change?
Okay, so the biggest thing would be for like the majority of the west of the river. Let me just do this here.
The only difference is that you can now do manufactured housing.
Yeah.
Like you can bring it.
Yeah.
So on the east side of the river.
So on this
Well,
side.
so today you can't
So
have
this
a-
area,
can't
you
bring
can
any
have a double
manufactured.
wide. Right now, this area, you can have a double wide with a masonry curtain wall. That's all that you can have on this area. Not up here. You cannot have any manufactured housing up here at all.
And that's because
Because it's R43.
That's R43.
With the overlay, you'll be able to do the two-section double wide in the entire area with or without a masonry foundation. You could do vinyl underpinning. It would also add single wides on an individual lot for the entire area. So somebody, if they've got a child or somebody, if they can subdivide the lot, they can let them place that single wide there with the vinyl underpinning. The other thing that's known too with state law is that we also cannot require masonry foundation for rented property. So if I own the lot and I want to rent to Shannon, even though she's a family member, she's leasing it from me, she doesn't have to put the masonry underpinning just because she's renting the lot. Now, if she buys the lot, Shannon's got to put the masonry underpinning. So there's another incongruency in state law. Just because she's renting the land, quote unquote, she pays me $1 a year, she gets out of that.
So what we're seeking to do with this overlay is just to expand options for
Yeah.
manufactured housing in certain areas, the west of the river, and then that little pocket around Hogan View, Bannister Drive, that kind of area. There are limited options today, as Ricky said. You can do the double wide with the masonry foundation, but that's not as affordable, it's not as flexible as some of these other products. And manufactured housing has come a long way in the last 20 years. So what had once been a concern is not, it doesn't carry the same level of concern, both in the quality of the housing in terms of like safety and all of those things, as well as the aesthetics. And again, aesthetics isn't anything we can regulate, so we're not really concerning ourselves with the appearance, because you can't regulate a stick built any more than you can regulate manufactured housing. So it's really just about, are you going to allow multi-sectional, or are you going to allow single-sectional, or are you going to require that it be on a masonry foundation, that it have, that doesn't have the skirting, or it does have the skirting? That's what we're seeking to.
So my question is, what's the reasoning behind picking these specific regions? Why not include the Crest Mountain area, or why not the whole entire town of Woodfin? If this is the right thing to do, then why is it the wrong thing to do in some places and the right thing to do in others?
It's primarily based on historic development patterns. So today, the area around Hogan View and Bannister, they have single wides. There are units on the west side of the river that have single wides. We've also heard from community members on the west side that they would like more options for manufactured housing. There have been comments made that people have come in to try to get the single wide and they've been told no, and the town sent them away. So this is something that community has asked for, and so we're trying to respond.
So if a developer was to come in and wanted to build a development with manufactured homes, would that be allowed?
No. So that is a different, that's what we call manufactured housing community.
Right.
And that is part of your text amendment. We do not have a zoning district now, an overlay or general use district that addresses communities. So we're creating that, but we are not applying it. So you have two actions that are happening tonight. One is the zoning text amendment that creates these standards for manufactured housing or amends the standards. The other is applying a zoning overlay to west of the river and Bannister Hogan View. There will be another zoning action, zoning map amendment, that changes the map to apply that manufactured housing community overlay at a future date, but we're not there yet. So tonight, we're just looking at an individual property owner's right to be able to bring in a unit or two on their property. We're not addressing communities of
So,
manufactured housing.
I'll go with the old school terms. We're not allowing trailer parks. I know that's not.
That's not part of it.
That's not part of what's being considered tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be an MHC, and they're not, we're creating the language for that with the MHC requirements, but there's not an area that will be defined as an MHC at this point.
Thank you.
So we had some public comment or some comments from the community about we don't want trailer parks. That's not what this is
Okay.
achieving. So.
And the side, what if you have property owners on the east side that want to go and do the things that they can't do today? Unless there was an overlay there.
So the great thing about zoning is it's not static. You know, if we discover later that, you know, this is wildly popular on the west side and they have these wonderful products and they're very affordable and now there are areas on the east side that want it, we can always look at applying this overlay on the east side as well. This text amendment also expands options for manufactured housing on the east side where the overlay doesn't exist. So now we are proposing this as part of this text amendment that multi-sectional homes, or we're calling Class A, are permitted in any residential district. So we are expanding opportunities on the east side of the river as well.
Class A on the east side without an overlay. Class B is only allowed with an overlay, still wouldn't be allowed
Yeah.
on
A and B would be allowed on the west side, but you need the overlay to do the B.
multi-section. So there's no single wides allowed on the east side.
Yes.
I'm not sure I follow the reasoning why there's the river
If you were to
division.
see the manufactured housing map, there's like Shannon said, there is a preponderance of, like, if you look at the map, the tax code, and I might have it somewhere, but this area on the west side of the river, there is a substantial portion of the housing stock is manufactured housing. And then there's areas like right here, because of R7, and number of double wides we have already, there's some right in this area along Elk Mountain. So that, and then Hogan View, as Shannon said, is the other area that kind of lit up. So we're not like, we're going to try this out before we go free for all. I think you just start off this, and like Shannon said, if there's a demand on this side of the river, the neighborhoods could always petition that as an option. Or if council in 5-10 years says, no, we're going to do this town-wide, we can always get rid of it and do it. But
Most of the manufactured housing on the east side are in those manufactured housing communities. So we will be looking at that, you know, as part of this other zoning action that will come later. But as far as, this is a little bit different because in this area around on the east side, the Bannister Hogan View area, those are individually owned lots, individually owned by the residents, same on the west side. So it's a little bit different than a community where those are usually rentals.
So the intention for the, zoning is that we will change manufactured home or housing communities to that in the future? Am I understanding
Yeah,
that?
potentially,
Okay, that's
yeah.
potentially, all right.
That's the MHC.
Yeah.
But not the manufactured home overlay.
Yeah, okay, not the text amendment, yeah.
Right. So that manufactured home overlay isn't just the text, that's changing what's allowed. Right?
Okay.
I don't want to distract from the conversation tonight, but there's a whole other host of considerations when it comes to the communities. and what we're trying to protect and what we're trying to prevent. So that's a whole conversation. Some of it overlaps with what we're talking about tonight, but not all of it.
Also, we need to talk to property owners before we start rezoning properties.
Exactly.
That's all we're not doing that tonight.
Now, as far as the underlying zoning, that doesn't change anything. You want to build a stick-built house, everything applies on the west side, same as the east side. There's no difference.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do you have any more to present? Any more slides that are hidden?
There's all kinds of slides, but we can't be here till midnight.
That's fine.
But I could be here till midnight talking about it, but I think Shannon's wanting to get home, ain't Shannon? She's not had supper.
So do we
I
have
haven't
questions
either.
for Ricky and
So anyway, so I think we just already went through all that. That's just some considerations, if you want to read through that. But I think we've already talked this over. So obviously you can kind of tell that we're recommending that the text amendment and the map amendment, and we'll need two different votes. Obviously, we'll do the text amendment first to create the language recommended, and then to vote on the map that we just looked at as Exhibit A. And so, if you want to discuss further, or if you've got
we have to open to the public?
Are you open? Seem to open public comment? Yes.
So we will this time open the public, and I have, looks like, a Mr. Campbell. If you could please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Rob Campbell. I live at 185 Olivet Road. I just got a couple of questions. Mr. Jerome brought up one good point that I've sort of been curious myself, is, and I'm not sure it's been addressed adequately, as to why this overlay is strictly on the west side of the river and not the east side. You know, I'm looking at a zoning district map, and I know that this area on the west side is all zoned R10. You've got an awful lot of R10 just on the other side of the river there, and I'm wondering why this overlay wouldn't also apply there. It just seems that there should be equality in how these things are done. I had a question as to what this overlay entitles property owners to do. Is there some limit on the density of how many mobile homes can be put on a property? I know you've got setback issues, but we don't have any sewer on the west side there as well, so everything's going to have to be septic, and you're starting to tax groundwater and everything else over there with that. I'm also curious if it's not more likely to have mobile home communities follow in areas that already have this overlay, if that would then just sort of make them more liable to bring in that mobile home community. That opens up a whole nother can of worms there. I guess that's all the questions I have.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir. What was your first name? Was it Rob? Okay, thank you.
And just to confirm, there's no one else in public for this one tonight? Okay, we're good there. So, board, do we have further questions, discussions? What do we?
I wonder if town might address the issues that were raised.
Okay.
So as far as why on the west and not the east, well, we are looking at the east too. We do have that pocket around Hogan View Bannister, so that is one area. But the simple answer to that is, again, it's based on development patterns. It's the west side that we see the preponderance of manufactured housing to begin with, and I'm talking about a home on an individual lot, so not the communities. And then the other simple part of that answer is because that's the members of that community have specifically requested it. And we haven't had that same kind of request on the east side, so we don't have the same development pattern, we don't have the same request. Limit in density, yes, there's a limit. It's the same as single-family homes. You can have up to 2 manufactured homes on a single parcel. You go more than that, it becomes a manufactured housing community. So you can have 2, and that's the same as stick-built homes today on an individual lot. Now, some people will try to get around that. They'll subdivide their property and then if it's a large enough property, and then have 2 and 2. But you have to have the proper road infrastructure for that, you have to have the proper septic and well infrastructure for it. So that ends up oftentimes being a natural limitation, keeping that from happening. And then will this open up manufactured
Shannon?
housing communities?
But that would be the same for stick-built as well. They might subdivide.
Yes.
And put,
Yeah.
so whether it's
Same
stick-built or.
infrastructure
Okay.
requirements apply.
The same rules.
Same rules apply, yep. And then will this act open up the opportunity for manufactured housing communities? I wouldn't say it could never happen, but I think it would be unlikely. These are predominantly, manufactured housing communities typically go on larger lots. It's one property owner who identifies different sort of sublots on the property or home lots where the units sit. On the west side of the river, you have not a lot of really large lots. They're mostly sort of smaller to mid-sized lots. And so it would be a lot harder to get multiple units. Also, it does, again, it's limited to no more than 2 units. You go over that, it becomes a community, and a community requires a different zoning designation. So this zoning designation does not allow manufactured housing communities. That special MHC district that we're not applying tonight would have to be applied. So if somebody had a large enough lot and they wanted to do a community, they would have to rezone it, and we'd be back here with another public hearing to rezone that.
So it's not just a given.
It's not a given.
Okay.
It is not a by right option,
And it's not your plan.
and it's not our plan.
That was the map that I wanted to show them. This was so it's not perfect map, but the gray boxes are parcels that have a tax code of a manufactured home. So when we were talking about Crest Mountain, yeah, right down here's Crest. There is, it's the bottom of the map, but Crest Mountain's down in here. This is the Rock Springs subdivision, doesn't have anything. So then you look up Dryman Valley, Gorman Bridge, there's quite a few in this area. And then we get up to Old Lester Road off Engle and Hollifield. So you can see there's quite a few homes in this area. And then as you move up toward Flynn Branch and Farm Road in this area, so you can kind of see there's a significant area that's filled in. Now, granted, that might be 10 acres with one home on it, but it flags. And then lastly, and you're kind of like, what's the magenta color, right? That's ones that are like communities, parks that are in our issue. So again, this is Hogan View Bannister. So you can see that lights up real quickly. And adjacent Greenwood Fields. So you see there's nothing going on there. And so that's Weaverville Road. So you can see that we have a lot of mobile home, manufactured home communities in that area. And then as our resident spoke out, in here close along Elk Mountain, so this area that's kind of R10, R7, majority of these are double wide homes that are the Class A that are allowed now. So again, I guess that's where we were at, that we had looked at like for single wides, and there was a larger number of single wides on this area. That's why we targeted, as Shannon said, the overlay district starting there first. There are a smattering of single wides on this side. So just gives you a little bit of the tax card behind it. Yes, sir.
If someone on the east side wanted the benefits of the overlay later on, we could add that in.
You can. You don't want to apply it on an individual lot basis.
Yeah, I'm
It
talking
would
about the
need to be
whole
like,
area.
yeah, kind
Yeah.
of like a community area.
Okay. So I think he has one more question or something.
So I'm curious if part of the reasoning behind doing this is to provide opportunities for people to have more affordable options for housing. It still makes no sense to me to limit it to just simply the west side of the river. And when you're starting to see if all of these gray areas are mobile homes, and even by your admission, some of these larger gray areas could be a 10-acre property with one mobile home on there. So to say that there's a preponderance of mobile homes on the left side of the river, I'm not sure that that's been really proven at this point.
Yeah, I should qualify what I said, or clarify. It's not correct to say there's a preponderance of mobile homes. I think the preponderance of single-wide homes are on the west side and in that little pocket of Hogan View Bannister. Or they're in those communities,
And we
those
don't wanna give
manufactured
that
housing
option to the
communities.
people on the east
I
side.
don't know that we don't. I just think we're just not there yet. We know that this request was something that folks on the west side were interested in, so we're starting there. We may end up doing this on the east side. The amendment that we're proposing does expand options on the east side, because currently there, the double wides are limited to just, I think, 2 zoning districts.
Currently it's 2.
And this amendment would expand it to all residential zoning districts, so it wouldn't just be limited to those 2. And then we are also looking at these kind of special standards and protections that will apply to those manufactured housing communities, but that's going to be something that we'll consider later.
And I still think there's the greater probability that a mobile home community would be established in areas where there's already a preponderance of single-wide mobile homes. I mean, that just makes sense to me, especially if you've got 10-acre properties over there, you've got, you have small homeowners that would maybe want to sell out.
You're talking about the west side.
Yeah, I'm talking about the west side.
So the only way to have a manufactured housing community would be to do a rezoning. So you would have a public hearing. We'd be doing what we're doing here tonight. And anything over 20 units requires a conditional zoning action, which then becomes conditioned. As you heard, we had 2 applications earlier, which then also looks at all kinds of other compatibility standards. So it's not a given. It's something that would have to go through a process with public input.
I'm just saying it's more likely to take place if you've already got preponderance of single-wide. It just makes sense to me.
I don't know if I don't know if I can agree with that. I mean, I think the development pattern on the west side is very much, these are all individually owned lots. 10 acres, I'm not sure how many units, terrain is different. I mean, in some cases, you could probably get multiple units, in other cases, maybe not. But I know the majority, as you see from this map that Ricky was showing, and you go up, I don't know how to.
You have to grab that. You have to
Scroll down.
You have to, okay. Oh, thank you. The majority of the single wides that are on the east side are in these parks, these communities. And so we don't want to get rid of that. We don't want to dismiss that. That is something that we're just going to approach from a different perspective. And it's just a slightly different strategy, kind of fits a different need on the east side than on the west side.
And regardless, on the east side, if somebody wanted at some point a community, they could also come and request a conditional zoning and a.
Yep, or rezoning, to this manufactured housing community. And there are other standards, in the community that have to be adhered to, so.
Any other questions? And I'm going to officially close to the public because I forgot to do that. Sorry. Close the public. I don't have any other questions. I'm good. So Ricky has a.
So we have 2 separate
Yes.
approvals, right?
Yes, the first one's the text amendment. So do I have a volunteer for that?
I move to approve the proposed text amendment and find that it is reasonable, is in the public. I don't find anything anymore. Is consistent with the Woodfin Together Comprehensive Plan and meets the development needs of the community in that the request promotes an integrated mix of housing types and affordability options, discourages the displacement of existing residents, and protects existing affordable housing through regulatory tools, balances the supply of land for housing and employment, ensures Woodfin is a place where residents have opportunities to engage on community issues, modernizes zoning districts to better align with the FLUM while using zoning tools to protect manufactured housing.
Second. I'll second it. I can do that, right? Okay. Let's call for a vote. Mr. Hanson.
Approve.
Mr. Deroni. Approved. Mr. Hopkins.
Approve.
Mr. Young.
Approved.
Mr. Hayes. Approve. So the text part of it is complete.
I move to approve the proposed map amendment and find that it is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with Woodfin Together Comprehensive Plan, and meets the development needs of the community in that the request promotes an integrated mix of housing types and affordability options, discourages the displacement of existing residents, and protects existing affordable housing through regulatory tools, balances the supply of land for housing and employment, and utilizes zoning tools to protect manufactured housing.
You could do TV commercials. You do that very well. Let's take a vote.
I'm going to comment for this because
Okay.
I feel like there should be discussion about the map, because I have some of the same ideas around, the east side of the river versus the west side of the river, what existing properties are there, and have single wides or have double wides already, and I'm not sure that the lines sort of that are drawn, I'm not sure that they make sense to me. So I think that there's things that are areas maybe that we'd be leaving out sort of on the east side of the river, or areas on the west side of the river that look at the area that they have. So like that Crest Mountain River or something, I forget the name of that area, where there's developments there that touch upon things right around them, and why are they not included? So you've got now residents looking at, here's a line that was drawn right here, and I'm not sure that promotes the unification sort of those areas. So I'm not sure I followed some of the boundaries that we're putting in place.
Well, I think Shannon had a couple interactions with people at Rock Springs. There's a POA that doesn't allow manufactured housing, and then Crest Mountain just doesn't allow manufactured housing. So we could have included those areas, but it'd have been, they were just not going, I think we just got information, they were just not categorically not allowing that. And if the board, wants us to explore the east side of the river, like along Elk Mountain Road, then we could, as a second phase of an overlay district, begin researching and talking to the neighborhoods on this side on that. But that could be a second step, kind of like we've talked about, a second step with the manufactured housing community. I don't think, again, Shannon made a point, zoning is not, it should be a living document, and I don't think that the map is static. So we could look at this year of doing that. So,
And that was the piece I heard, was that community asked for this.
Right.
And so I would agree that approaching it on the east side makes good sense.
Right.
I don't think we should hold up the other side.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
I would be curious how many people asked for this. You said the community did.
I know what was like the last community meeting we had on the west side of the river, there was several people had mentioned the limitation on manufactured housing, and we were already working on that as part of the comp plan, because this document's based on feedback from the past year with the community on the comp plan.
And we sent notification letters to everybody in this area, so that's about 450 letters. So I think if people were concerned about this being applied on the west side, they would be here. You would know.
Should show up for.
Yeah. The couple, yeah. I think the biggest concerns we had was about manufactured housing parks being installed. So, yeah. Which the letters are mailed to property owners, and so we'll have to check with the tax card on that one. So.
Yeah, I don't know. That was my only concern, is around whether that's something that I hadn't heard that the community wants us to, but maybe I know the neighbors that around that area that I know are in your same kind of position. I thought.
I live in that overlay. I'm one of the
Yeah.
All right, did you feel like you got what you need to know for right now?
Yeah, I don't know.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. We'll take a vote. Mr. Hanson?
Approve.
Mr. Duroni?
Disapprove.
Oh, it's a disapprove?
Yeah.
No.
It's a no. Mr. Hopkins?
I'm not sure. Approve.
Mr. Young?
Approve.
And Mr. Hayes approves, so that's 4-1. 4-1. We're good, that numbers?
Yeah, it does have to be some majority, just simple
That
majority.
has been approved, 4-1.
And of course, this isn't final tonight. We'll take this to town council in 2 weeks.
This is technically our recommendation.
This
to
is
the council.
recommendation. so, yeah.
Exactly.
So,
But this is not law.
yeah, no, not yet. This will be on town council, so there'll be a second round of public hearings in that one as well.
Will there be discussion with town council about looking at the east side as well?
We'll forward this discussion as part of that. As part of that one, we can take that forward just to let town council know Shannon's here tonight, so we can let them know that was a,
And we heard from Mayor that several listened to this meeting or watched this meeting live.
okay. So that was our last agenda item for tonight as far as public hearing, and
Do you want to discuss your vacancies?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to step forward. Ricky, can I show you this?
Yeah.
Are these dates, I believe these are correct. Are these updated? This is the most recent ones?
When is the
Yeah,
town council
that was all
meeting
based on
that will
the
discuss that?
recommendation of the
If we
board.
wanted to talk about.
March 19th.
That's March 19th.
So we're going to talk about the vacancy, and I actually also want to bring up that we have 1, 2, 3 members that expire in May of this year.
Yes.
So we don't do anything from the board ourselves, correct? That comes from town council?
Correct, they will appoint, but what we're curious is for the 3 whose terms would expire, if they're interested in being reappointed.
Actually, 2. So Stephanie has resigned. I guess everybody
Yep.
knows that. Stephanie has resigned, so she was due to expire this year. The other expirations are Larry and Kennedy. So I guess the questions are you guys interested to continue on this board? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
And Larry?
Okay,
So from the 2 remaining members that expire in May, they are interested to
okay.
And
So how this,
How long will that be for? the
it's a
term?
3-year term.
And, okay.
They were
3 years.
staggered because of the creation of the new board.
Does that include the 1 year we're going to finish up, or 3 more
So
years?
you've finished your first term, after that first year, because you're completing 1 year of a term, the last year of a term, of a 3-year term. So the first term is done. If you get reappointed, you would serve a second 3-year term for a total of 4 years.
I got an age limit.
And so being interested in being reappointed is extremely valuable and of interest to the council. It is technically not a foregone conclusion that you would be reappointed. We would open, because we do have a vacancy for the other seat, we will open for applicants to invite people to apply. In theory, it's possible that the council could choose from any of those pool of applicants, including our 2 seated members who are interested in being reappointed. But it's not a given. And
Would you like
however, I would think it's highly probable.
Would you like a letter from the members that they would like to be, to give?
No,
to
I
council?
think it's enough for us just to communicate it, yeah.
Just to make sure we're officially covered. So you'll pass along that they are interested?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us, looks like we're good till 26.
28. That's right, because we're, yeah.
3 years. So that would put us into like May of '27?
Yes, if you were reappointed, then it'd be another 3 years, yes. We're all staggered now. Any more on that topic, or we're good?
I was just going to mention that it's really an ontological issue if you're saying that you can resign and then not have to expire in life.
All right, well, that's all the business we have for you.
Okay. Any other questions, anything, comments, topics for the board? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So, second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned for the night.